Alright, so now that we got the carburetor off the motorcycle, the first thing we want to do is drain the bowls of gasoline. So I recommend getting an 8mm wrench and loosening the two overflow bolts or screws right there. I took them fully out, and then what will happen is gasoline will drain out of these two holes, and you might want to do this outside and not indoors where you risk causing a fire from gasoline. Once that's been done, we can move on to the next step of removing the bowls. Alright, so now that we got the carburetor part, we have to remove the bowl screws. They're Phillips head, so I recommend using the widest Phillips head you have. I also recommend using something like an impact screwdriver, because these are very tight and you'll risk stripping them, as I'll show you later, because I did that. So, without further ado, let's take them apart. So as you take these apart, you'll notice that they're all very soft material Phillips head screws and are very prone to stripping if you don't lose something like the impact screwdriver like I recommended. Now, as you can see right here, the very last screw on one of the float bowls I stripped. So what I ended up doing is getting this easy out kit, and we're gonna see, hopefully this works. When that's been done, I recommend going to your local hardware store and getting a set of 5mm by 12mm Allen key screws to replace the Phillips head ones, because you are likely to strip them in the future. And then the ones on the brackets are slightly longer, and those should be not 12mm, but I believe they were 15mm. So the thread pitch is 0.8, length is 15mm for only these two, and it's an M5 screw, Allen key. The others are only 12mm in length, but they are also 0.8 thread pitch. So let's see if we can remove this strip screw. Okay, so after fiddling around with the easy bit extractors, I found they didn't work and decided to say to hell with it and drill out the head. So you can see right there the head is removed, and funny enough, as I take it off, the screw is sticking out right there. Hopefully you can see that. All I need to do is get a wrench around. Oh, not even a wrench. I can loosen it with my fingers. Look at that. And yeah, we're going to replace them with the Allen heads, so it doesn't matter to keep them. We got lucky today. Alright, now that we got that apart and we have access to the jets. Oh, wrong side. Over here. You're over here, camera. Alright. And we have the new jets from a jet kit. These are YJ128s, because I have an aftermarket high flow exhaust, at least a good one, quote unquote. And we're going to remove this with a flathead. So grab the biggest flathead you can that'll fit in there nicely, and make sure it's lefty loosey righty tighty as everything, and you try to just carefully apply pressure so you can loosen it. The bracket will come off with it, so make sure you catch anything that falls out. There's that removed. Remove the bracket, and here you can see the old jet. Make sure you do this with something soft like your fingers. You don't want to start wrenching on it, because you're going to cause damages and ruin your jets. So don't do that. Just kind of gently wiggle it out. It has an O-ring on it, and there we have the stock main jet removed. Goes in the larger hole with the O-ring. The new jets right here, hopefully you can see that, yeah, came with O-rings to put on. So off camera I will do that and install this new jet on the carburetor. Alright, so I put the stock O-ring onto the aftermarket jets, as the aftermarket O-rings didn't seem to sit as nicely or as widely, and the stock ones are still in very good condition. So we're going to put it back the way we took it apart. Push it in as much as you can. That should provide adequate sealing. And then I'm going to get the bracket like so, so the fork faces down and presses down on that jet to hold it in place. And then we're going to get that flathead jet and reinsert it by hand carefully, as not to cross thread it. Always put these in by hand and then tighten them down with a screwdriver later. And that's it. And then just repeat on the other the other side over here, and you're done. Alright, so I've inserted the new Allen head bolts, and we're just going to tighten them down in a crisscross pattern so that the bowl seals properly with the O-rings, making sure nothing falls out. And then you have to be careful tightening it down because the metal is very soft and is very liable to strip. So you want to be very articulate in making sure, something just dropped down, that you don't over tighten these, and make sure you do it crisscross slowly to make sure it seals evenly all the way around. I can't really recommend a specific torque value, but you're just going to have to go by feel and make sure you pay extra close attention not to strip these out. Again, hand tight only. You don't need to overdo it. More torque is not better. Okay, so here on the other side of the bowls we have the two diaphragms. I'm only going to remove one side because I've already done the aftermarket installation of the spring using this Dyno Jet kit. Springs look like this. There's two tied together there, that's fine, and you will have these jet needles as well on the end in your kit, depending on what you're doing with your carburetor. So we're just going to loosen them. There's two kind of sort of looking crush washers on them. Now I'm getting a phone call, but I'm going to ignore it. Just take them out. They don't need to be tightened that tight because they've got washers on them, and it is a rubber diaphragm, so you want to be careful. Hold that in while you loosen the last one. Move it by hand, and then carefully take it out, making sure not to lose anything. There's the spring. I'm going to remove that. There's a rubber piece at the end of it. Place that off to the side. And kind of carefully pry up the diaphragm all the way around to make sure it's not sticking. And then carefully pull it out, making sure not to lose this needle. Because if you tip it upside down, that needle will come out along with all the fine bits and pieces. So with all the screws back on the bowls, retighten these drain screws, making sure not to over tighten them because you don't want to strip them, because this is very easy soft metal to strip. So make sure everything that you tighten down, even the diaphragm Phillips head, is hand tight only, because it's very easy to strip the carburetor threads. Now the only last thing you could really do is replace some other jets, but I think these right here under these grommets are the idle mixture screws. So if you need to adjust those, you can do them here, but I recommend doing them on the bike. Plenty of videos on how to do it on other bikes. The only thing is you have two carburetors instead of just one carburetor body, so you have to adjust both of them at the same time, provided that you do have them synchronized. The synchronized screw is not this one, that's the idle set screw where the release falls back to. The carburetor sync screw is right in there. It's right there, pretty hard to get to. It's also something you're going to need a special tool for, to check the vacuum on each of the carburetor lines to make sure it's equivalent before you start messing with the idle mixture screws. So, good luck, have fun, and I hope this video helped you guys out there.